Now, despite the Bible being one complete story, the Old Testament and the New Testament have different covenants. And you can think of a covenant as a contract for how we are to worship God. So the way that the people worship God in the Old Testament is different than how we are to worship God now through the New Testament. And God even tells us in the Old Testament that he was going to change the covenant one day. In Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 31, he says, "Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah." And he describes that in verse 33, "For this is the covenant that I will make with them. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people." Now, the New Testament gives us several references that the old law has passed, and a new law or a new covenant is here. In Hebrews chapter 8, verse 13, it says, "In speaking of a new covenant, he makes the first one obsolete, and what is becoming obsolete and growing old is ready to vanish away." In Romans chapter 7, verse 6, it says, "But now we are released from the law, having died to that which held us captive, so that we serve in the new way of the Spirit and not in the old way of the written code." Now, all of this is because of Christ's death. Christ's death fulfilled the old law. And we get descriptions of that in Hebrews chapter 9 and in Hebrews chapter 10. So here in Hebrews 10, it tells us in verse 1, "For since the law has but a shadow of the good things to come, instead of the true form of these realities, it can never, by the same sacrifices that are continually offered every year, make perfect those who draw near." And if you drop down to verse 8, it says, "When he said above, you have neither desired nor taken pleasure in sacrifices and offerings and burnt offerings and sin offerings. These are offered according to the law." Then he added, "Behold, I have come to do your will." He does away with the first in order to establish the second. And by that will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. And what that is telling us is that in the Old Testament, they had essentially animal sacrifices to forgive people of their sins, but Christ is the perfect sacrifice, and we no longer need those animal sacrifices. A couple more examples of the difference in the covenants. In the Old Testament, the people had specific things that they could or couldn't eat. You can find that in Leviticus chapter 11, verses 2 through 8. The people also had different festivals and days that they needed to honor. We can find that in Exodus chapter 23, verses 12 through 17, a description of some of those feasts and some of those days. But in Colossians chapter 2, verses 16 and 17, we're told, "Therefore, let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath. These are a shadow of the things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ."